Hey, it's Tuesday, Total Schmidt Show. I'm in Mexico. Let's do this.
Hey, tune in every week as I travel the world and I talk to entertainers from all over the world. A lot of writers, a lot of comics, a lot of dancers, a lot of singers, a lot of comics, a lot of producers, a lot of tech people, a lot of comics, a lot of pianists, piano player type people. You know what I'm talking about. Musicians and lots of comics. Every once in a while, we'll throw in a comedy sketch, something like that, some music, some travel stuff. We'll even do a live remote from one or two of the ports they happen to be hanging out at.
That's it. That's the whole show. And I'm going to record it all and put it on the intraweb. Sometimes. Usually late. Always late. Maybe. I don't know. And weekly? No. Maybe. Sort of.
Either way, sit back, grab a beer, light a joint, and enjoy this week's episode of Hey guys, it's me, Total Schmidt Show, Tuesday night, 6 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in and being here. I played Las Vegas just a few weeks ago, and I worked with Francisco Ramos, and that's who is on the show tonight. So sit back and enjoy the show. Before we get to that, do me a favor while you're watching, real quick, hit the thumbs up button down below. You can like the video. That would help me out a ton. You can also subscribe to the channel. Those two things cost you nothing but help me out immensely. If you look above me, below me, wherever it happens to be on this particular video, all the information on my socials are coming through. Follow me, Mr. Lenny Schmidt, everywhere. Pretty much you can find me. Also, there's ways you can support the show through Patreon. Through Venmo, Cash App, all that stuff. Mr. Lenny Schmidt is pretty much how you find us, and that's it. Please sit back and enjoy the conversation. Francisco, I worked with him for a week. He got married just before we did this gig. He's a comic, very funny to do. It was my first time meeting him. He's got an improv background. We had a great week talking about it and had a lot of fun and got to record the show. And actually helped him with an audition. So it was pretty cool. But he's got some really cool insights. It was great working with him. So why don't you sit back now and listen to my conversation with the one and only Francisco Ramos.
English is a very tricky language to learn, because you get words with letters that are silent. Like they're there, but you don't mention them. You know what I mean? Like the word salmon. I hate that word. Why is there an L in there? I just have to pretend that it's not there? No, but I see the L. It's silent. Then get it out of there. If it's not making a noise, give it to lollipop. I think with all the immigration issues that are going on, I think that's how they should test people at the airport to see if they're American or not, you know what I mean? Just be like, sir, please pronounce this word if you want to get in the country. Salmon. We're going to have to deport you, sir. Well, there's an L in there. In America, you have to pretend it's not there. Like racism. Me and my family moved from Venezuela to D.C., Maryland, when I was 12 years old, because my mom got a job at the Pan American Health Organization. That's why we moved there, Right. It was like, and we moved, and, I grew up there, did all my, college there, all that stuff. And then when I first started, when I graduated, I majored in finance and international business, and didn't like it, so I started going like, okay, I got to find what I like. At that time, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Was very, a huge show that I really like, improv. So I took a class at the DC Improv, and that's how when I basically like really kind of like, oh man, this is what I want to do. Like exactly everything like. It was. I always tell people like 3 things happened to me. It was like, wow, it's the first time I was better than the average. I'm a huge sports fan, but like a sports guy, I play pretty much every sport, but I was never like the star of any sport. I wasn't bad, but I was never good. I never got picked last. Exactly. Yeah, right. I never got picked last, but I was never like, oh, this guy. But the first time I did improv or anything with comedy related, I felt like I'm pretty, I'm better than anybody else.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It was, you could tell I was like, why these people don't pick it up quickly or they didn't get it?
Right.
And for me, I got it so quick here. And I'm like,
Yeah, right.
And that was the first time in my life that I felt like that. And then the other thing was that is the other time that everything throughout my life, I was always following the crowd or doing what was cool. Like, I would play games or ride a skateboard, but then I would get bored and then move on to the next thing. I would never find. So then this is the first time that I found something and I'm like, no, I want to do it again. And I want to do it again. And it wasn't about like following the crowd. It's because I wanted to do it.
Yeah, right.
And that was the second thing. I was like, oh. And then the third thing was when the first time we did that, you do a show, a class, they have the class. They always have like the end of the show for family and friends and stuff like that.
Right.
So I did it, and I remember being on stage, and I never been on stage pretty much my whole life, and I felt so comfortable being on stage.
Oh, that's great.
And that's when I was like, okay, those three things were like, this is different than anything else. And that's when I started to kind of like pursue it and thinking about moving, and that's why I moved to LA to start pursuing comedy over there.
Right, and you got in the Groundlings.
Got in the Groundlings. I got there. They couldn't find a core group of people to kind of, because I always say if I would have found like two other guys that were would have done sketches and done maybe I would have never done stand up. Because that's how I like to. That's kind of even how I think. I mean, in stand up, very like act out stuff like that. So, but then I just started doing open mics, and then. And that's how I got into stand-up. And then one of the, you do the circuit throughout LA of doing open mics. So I basically started in LA how to do, stand-up,
Wait, around what year?
So I moved there like 2006, 2007. That's when I started. Maybe late 2006 is when I started really doing open mics. Yeah.
Yeah, got it started in 88.
Oh, wow.
In LA.
Wow.
Yeah, but the improv thing I know you're talking about because we talked about it's hard to find two things. One, it's hard to find a group of people you can depend on. Mm-hmm. And when I was doing I.O. in Chicago, it was different at I.O. because they put you in Herald teams, so you performed every week.
Yeah,
and then you rehearsed every week. And in Chicago, they kind of took it seriously. People at the I.O. were, they're a lot of talented people in those groups. But then when we moved to L.A., we were in the I.O. in L.A. My wife, I was still married at the time. That's where I met her. I met her in Second. She did Second City with Stephen Carell and all those guys. Wave. Yeah, but now it's something you got to depend on other people. And in L.A., the improvisers are so worse than they were in Chicago, only because so many people in L.A. just to get discovered or be in the business, they don't understand the work ethic behind it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So once you start doing it, like you said, and you fall in love with it and you're working, it's just, you want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Other people are like, well, when do I start getting paid?
Exactly.
And you're like, no, that's
not how it works.
Yeah, it takes a while. You got to eat it for a while.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so then you can't depend on it because then they start flaking on rehearsals.
Yeah.
And man, when you're,
and that was the worst stuff because I was like, you never felt that people were on the same. And I moved specifically to like, I want to do this for real.
Right.
Like, but like you said, let's professional. We got to rehearse. We got to do this. It's not, but nobody did that. And that's why stand-up to me was like, well, I'm the only one who can push
because you're depending only on yourself.
Exactly.
You'll put the work in.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's what I did. I remember, because I used to work so when I first moved to LA, I obviously wanted to even try it out to see even if I had the chops or the skills to do it. So I got a job at a finance firm, So I was working with the East Coast hours. So I would start working at 6:30 in the morning and at 2:30 in the afternoon. So then that was kind of like a blessing in disguise job because like then I could just do open mics, in the afternoon, So it's like, so I did literally start doing like every day I would do an open mic, maybe 2 or 3,
Yeah.
And that's how I started getting
You got plenty of time. You just got to get up early.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that was the only thing. I mean, like for the first only first
and
4 days.
Because your finance degree? Is that because of that?
Yeah.
Dude, you're not the first comic I've met that's got a finance degree.
Really?
You know what I mean? Or lawyers. I mean, a lot of guys used to be lawyers.
Yes, exactly.
It's really weird. They're like, I used to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I know.
All right.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, to me, it's like, definitely has helped me with, budgeting or like, kind of like, of the money of even the little money that you don't even make, just knowing how to like, how to manage yourself and stuff like that.
I would know.
Because it's like,
I made 0 good financial moves my entire life. So I envy guys like you that got it right straight and early. Like I try to teach my kids that.
Yeah.
I try really hard. I'm like, you guys don't do what I did. It's too late for me.
Exactly.
I'm done. But I'm like, save money, do this, wash it, be thrifty.
Exactly.
It's amazing how we're talking. I think it was. Remember we were talking yesterday about. We were talking that they should teach mindfulness and yoga and stuff.
Exactly.
They should also teach finance better. In
yes.
school.
And like real finance, not like stuff like like stuff that you can really like get it. Like, hey, how do we even open an account? What do you know? Checking, savings,
stuff you're gonna
all that
do.
stuff that you're gonna use.
Because
And
they think they bank on us fucking up and
Exactly.
then being in debt. When you get out of college, you're out of debt if you have a college loan. But then you get 1 or 2 credit cards. Those are by the time you're in the game.
Exactly.
You're behind the 8
You're exactly.
And
that's
these kids try to teach my daughters the credit card thing is a big deal.
Yeah, no, and I think that should be the things that you teach, because that thing is like people in school, you concentrate on like, let me teach theorems and calculus. It's like, but how are you really gonna use that in the everyday thing? It's like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying not teach that, but also teach how to open a credit card and what this APR means. And it's like, hey, don't just pay the minimum. You know, try to pay as much as, you know, all this other stuff that's more valuable than just like eat. You know, that just knowing how to do
we
it.
need to survive.
Exactly.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people. I mean, more than 60 or 70% of this country doesn't have enough money in savings, and they're in debt.
Exactly.
And the credit card thing is the biggest one. There's still people that think they don't. My youngest has a hard time comprehending the credit card. So the lesson I try to teach him is, I go, whatever we put on the card, you got to pay off at the end of the month. I go, it's just like an advance.
Exactly.
So you got to pay it back.
Yeah.
Just because you have $6,000 worth of credit doesn't mean
you have
$6,000.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you have $6,000.
Yeah.
Because now suddenly that $6,000 is turned into over the minimum payment.
$9,000.
Yeah. And that's how the banks get you, but they don't teach that shit.
No, they don't. I mean, I remember even when I met in LA when I first moved there, I met a guy who was like a singer or something, and like. And he was a guy that started, I guess, very early on. Like I don't think he even maybe went to high school, but maybe dropped out of high school, whatever. But the guy had no idea even how to open like a checking account or a bank account. And I was like, and to me, it was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I thought this was common sense. I'm like, but he had no idea. He was just used to just cash literally and put it like under his mattress, kind of shit like that. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, how the hell?
What are you, from 1912?
Yeah.
that's post.
But it's crazy, like when
depression
people
thought.
Yeah. But that's how it is. Is like people like that. Then like he would make a lot of money, but then he would lose it because you start buying crazy. You don't.
Yeah.
And especially in the entertainment business, that's the thing that was the biggest kind of like change in the beginning of me when I had to like mentally and was of throughout my whole life. I always had jobs that you always you get paid every 15th or every end of the month or something like that and an amount is coming the same time.
Right.
So like when I quit my that finance firm in LA, it was the first time that I had to like, oh shit, now I don't have anything coming in the month. So now I had to like, all right, now if I make money this month, I have to save it because I don't know if I'm gonna make money.
The roller coaster.
So it's that whole like what it is to be an artist, which is like an artist, you don't get paid. I mean, you might get paid a lot in some months, and then the rest of the year you don't have anything else.
Yeah.
So you can't just spend all that money. Because
it's the hardest thing too, and when you're just like stand-up makes it a little bit easier because we get paid every week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's different formats. Like here, we pick up a check or whatever.
Exactly.
The cruise ships, they have different payment.
Yeah,
they usually get a week later. Whatever. There's some sort of system. But when it comes to acting, you're out there, you're auditioning all the time. And for a while, I had a great acting coach I worked with. She was great. I loved her. And I went a year without booking anything, and I was losing my mind. I was really losing my mind.
Yeah.
And she was like, and she kept going. She's like, we were talking about it yesterday. She goes, you're going out.
Yeah.
Because it's just a matter of time. And I'm like, and I just, my wife is pregnant with her second kid. I'm like, oh, this is the worst.
Yeah.
And then in a 3-month time period, I was just like, bam, I booked like 3 commercials and 2 network shows. Wow. And all of a sudden I went from making 0 to 2 months of bam. I'm like, oh, thank God. We bought all the kids stuff. We got everything we needed.
Yeah.
But it was just, you tried to budget as much as you possibly can, but you don't know how long you're.
But you don't know how it's gonna. And then the other day I read this thing where the show which is now a hit, Abbott Elementary.
Oh yeah, my daughters watch that show all the time.
Yeah, so there was a lady who's in the show. She was like the nanny in that movie, that Disney movie with Lindsay Lohan. I forget. She's in the show, but basically she said she was like when the show got renewed for another season. She said, and the lady's been working for like 25 years or 30 years, I don't know. And she's like, this is the first time I felt safe that I'm like, okay, now I can actually, I can take a vacation with my family or something like that.
Right.
After 25 years or 30 years of like landing a hit show and then getting renewed for the 3rd or 4th season. So it's not even like the first. So it's like,
Well,
that's how it is.
Kevin James lived in his apartment for the first 2 years of the show.
Really?
Yeah, he wouldn't move or buy a house for.
That's smart.
Yeah, he was like,
Yeah.
because he had deals, he had done other stuff. These.
So he had the idea, he had the experience of not like he didn't get it right away.
He knew he
right?
didn't want to do anything and Caponero, we were talking about yesterday. He had a show for a year.
Oh.
He had The Good Life for a year.
Wow.
So, but with the money he got paid on that deal, he bought the house.
Nah,
so
smart.
he owned the house in North Hollywood with his wife and his kids. And then when that show went away, because Drew Carey was his sidekick on that show, and then that went on, and Drew got his show, and then John didn't get another show, but he worked occasionally.
Yeah,
But not
yeah.
the money. He had a network on his own
Exactly.
sitcom on ABC for a year.
Wow.
But he used to call the house that Disney built.
Funny.
But he had one big year, and he spent the money wisely. And bought a house.
Yeah.
It was a smart move.
Yeah, then that's how I feel like that's how it is. I mean, it's like you can't just think. It's like you're never just because you make money in a lot doesn't mean that you're making money the next year or you're gonna make the same amount of money the next year.
Right,
or
and
anything
plus
like that.
sometimes when you get stuff out there in the artist world, you get you get residuals and stuff. But the Kate Bush story with the Stranger Things.
Oh yes, yeah.
That's the greatest story ever. She kept the rights to that song. And that song just kind of floated around for years, and that brought it back. I mean, she
Exactly.
made millions off that. And that's
Exactly.
all because she owned it.
That's another lesson of like that I learned too. Is like always keep your IP yours.
Own your shit,
own your own
stuff
shit
as much as
because-
possible. Yeah.
as much as you can
Yeah.
because you never know when one thing's gonna pop like that,
Yeah.
and then that's gonna make because if not, you don't make the money. Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise it's just the studios that make all the money, and then you basically get salary or whatever.
Exactly.
But yeah, the fact she did that was brilliant.
Yeah, that was
So I
so
love
smart.
hearing that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's been it's been a ride, man. But it's as like it's just this is a whole. I was gonna say this too. It's like I think also you need to have the personality of dealing with this kind of lifestyle because I remember when a couple years after I moved to LA, one of my good friends in DC, he was like, hey man, I really respect what you're doing, but I couldn't do that because I need to have my salary. I need to know that I have my insurance and all this stuff. And I'm like, and I respect that too because he my thing what I don't like is when people complain and they don't do nothing about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like if you don't like your lifestyle, then do something about it.
You have all the power to go out there and do.
Exactly.
You literally can do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
It's just a point of sacrifice, discipline.
But also realize that when you do one thing, you're not gonna have the other. So
Right.
you can have your cake and eat it too.
That's
you got
there's a balance in life that you got to be aware of.
because you were mentioning people that are in the improv that came and were like very like, hey, I want to be famous and all that stuff. It's like, well, now if you're just doing it for the fame or for all this other stuff, then you're not doing it for the
Right.
that's. If you don't have your priorities straight, then it's not gonna work. You know what I mean? You can be like, or you can have like, I want to have the weekends off. Like and like, no, you can't have the weekends off when you do this shit. You know what I mean? We don't have.
No.
But then we have the freedom to, hey, Wednesday I'm gonna go play golf. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like
And the freedom to schedule when you want to work.
exactly.
That's the other huge advantage. Like I live my whole year, I know I want this off, this off, this.
Exactly.
And I just don't work it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Shit. What was I just gonna? There was a point you brought up that I wanted to follow on. Oh, the mentality of doing when I got into this, because I was, my friends all had regular jobs right out of high school, and I started doing this. And if you're in this for the money, it used to be you're going to be weeded out. You're going to be gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just because you don't make money for a long time.
Exactly.
At the beginning, and even when you do, it's not much.
Yeah.
And then a couple good things happen, but they're far and few between. It's a long time before you kind of have a steady money coming in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people just end up working their way out. But the one thing that I'm always worried about now is that this. We're talking a little bit about it. This social media and the TikTok things. It's not. I notice this with young comics now when I do clubs. They don't. When I was starting out, I used to go watch other comics. I'd watch all the headliners always. I watch everybody. I sit in the comedy store and just watch guys all night.
Yeah, I did that. I work at the comedy store, so I basically did
watch
that.
the best guys. The best guys who were working, I would sit down and watch them. Just to,
That's how you learn. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of times they don't do that now because it's not about being a good comic anymore. It's about having a lot of followers and having a video that's viral.
And knowing how to do the edits and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like sometimes it's not. That's what I learned too. Is like like you said, it's not about being best comic or the most experienced comic, but if you know how to edit and know how to do the viral videos or that people can click, that's what draws people now in, you know?
Yeah, but I think, their focus is on that.
Yes.
And I think that hurts the business in the long run. Because, you know, the difference is you can do a couple of quick viral videos and stuff, but they couldn't go in and do 40 minutes in that club 7 nights a week.
Exactly.
That's the gap in between.
Exactly.
That I think that eventually we're going to hit a wall there somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, 100%. I think it's funny because, I learned how to do stand-up pretty much like you did, like going out and watching people. And then I was at the Comedy Store when nobody was there, when it wasn't popular, you know? So, like...
the dead years. The dead gap in the 2000s. Yeah.
So I worked pretty much when nobody was there. So I learned how to do comedy in front of nobody and had to be genuine in front of nobody. How to, you know, like, and now there's a thing now with all these new comics or new influencers that are doing stuff, and like they haven't gone through that. So they have, you know, when they go perform, it's in front of people that they know. Right. So it's like, of course it's easier when people know you, but like, you know what's hard when you gotta do a show when nobody knows you, it's not your crowd.
Right,
you know,
right. That's the whole
and being aware of that too. Like that's the thing too, because I think the whole fame of this viral thing happens like because you know you might have 1 million followers, you think you're the shit,
right?
But then when you go do a spot in a place that nobody know, you know that you're gonna assume everybody knows you. And then they don't know you. And then it's like, well, like, what do you do now? And it's being aware of that. Like, for example, like, we're doing this weekend right here in Vegas. And, like, you know, like, there's a few people that have come to see me throughout the show. But I know, like, most of the show, I'm new to them. So that's how I approach the show. I'm not approaching the show going like, hey, you guys know who the fuck I am. Like, you know, like.
Hey, it's Francisco.
Exactly. It's like what Brad did. Like, people come to see Brad and they know who Brad is. So it's like, it's a different thing. But it's like, you got to be aware of that, you know. And I think sometimes, you know, not going through the things that we did doesn't make you self-aware.
Well, the adversity. They didn't face any of the adversity.
Exactly. Just literally like, and I feel too like, this is why I feel like guys like that are, you know, that I saw coming up, like literally when I started working, like Sebastian Maniscalco or Bill Burr and all these guys, like I see them now at the store and all this stuff, and like they're just the same, you know what I mean? Because they went through the adversity of not, you know, for a long time. So now I feel like they know how to even manage when you're even that successful. You know what I mean? Right. So
well, there's something about. It's seasoned, man.
Yes, exactly.
It's a seasoned stand-up, and a lot of the younger and some of these kids, the viral guys, they're funny. They do funny clips, but there's a huge difference between, like you said, being in front of the cruise ships. 99% of the time in a cruise ship, nobody knows who the hell I am. I'm the comic. Everywhere I go, I'm the comic.
Exactly.
They see you. Hey, it's the comic. Hey, you know, nobody knows. So, but to be able to perform and make a theater full of people you don't know, or they don't know you, laugh on a regular basis.
Yes.
That's the art form.
Exactly.
That's the season, and that's the art form. And that's the gap that I think that, because in Chicago, like Zany's, I don't know if you get out that way.
Yeah. I did Zany's a couple months ago. Yeah.
Did you do Rosemont?
Rosemont.
Okay, great. It's a great room.
I love that room.
Dude, I taped my last 2 specials there.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I love that. I mean, just the way that it's set up and like
perfect,
the tiers and everything, because even if it's not crazy packed, you can still have a great show. You know what I mean?
No, it's really good.
It's really well set up.
Did you work there when Cindy ran it, or did you come after?
No. So that was before Cindy. Right. I mean, I just started doing it pretty much like I think in the last couple of years.
Oh, that's
so,
right. Yeah, she opened that room. She opened that room, and there was another room in Pheasant Run, St. Charles.
Okay.
That was a Zany's that almost closed, and she saved that room. She started out as a waitress there. Worked her way up to manager, and then it ended up opening Rosemont, and then eventually They met Brad. Brad's brother passed.
That's right. Yeah.
So anyway, that's how she ended up. Here.
Okay.
But why did I bring that up? There's
about the that you started.
Oh, well, we already mentioned the work in the room got to be. Oh, here's why. Chicago's Zanies is doing this thing, which I think is kind of smart. Is that you don't book? They used to book 7. It used to be 7 nights. You did Zanies for 7 nights.
Which one? The one in downtown.
In Old Town. And they don't really do that anymore. They do what I do is I'll do Rosemont, and then I'll do Sunday downtown, and then work out some, or I'll do a day earlier in the week. But they do. It's almost individual nights, and their nights are focused on people that are either have Instagram followers, and you kind of book your own night in a way. It's almost like you produce your own night.
Yeah.
They don't do it all of the time, but most of the time. And I think it's kind of brilliant because it brings in. Then if you get someone in Chicago that has a social media following, they do a Tuesday night. They can bring in 80 people.
Exactly.
And that works for the club because then they're
Exactly.
selling the ticket.
Because it could be enough night or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
But they started doing that. I think it's smart for this reason. A lot of clubs in other areas, they'll see somebody, this guy's got 2 million followers, we got to book him. And he's from the area.
For the weekend.
He'll be great for the week. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's not.
Yes.
He does one great show where his friends come out. And
then,
you know, 2 million followers doesn't mean 2 million people are coming to see you. You know what I mean? You'll get some, of course.
0.1%.
But as the week goes
thing.
on, he gets weaker and weaker and weaker and gets frustrated. He's just mad because he's not used to.
Not people not being there for who they are.
No,
you know?
he didn't start in this. He
Exactly.
started with this. It was a
Exactly.
popular thing.
Exactly.
So when he gets getting a bad crowd messes him up. And
Yeah.
they don't know how to handle it.
It's like literally like being like being raised up as a rich kid, being everything given to you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, that's not how it is. It's like, wait, but I got used to, you know.
Yeah.
But that's how and that's why it's like, it is a thing
That's
of like.
a great analogy, man.
Because like that's why they get frustrated because it's like, but why are they not laughing?
Yeah.
I got 2 million followers. I'm like,
This always
but
works.
they don't know who you
Yeah.
are, man. It's like and that's what I was gonna mention too about somebody like Bill Burr or Sebastian is like those guys already obviously are successful, but those are guys that even if they go into a place where nobody knows them, they're still gonna crush because they went through that. They're stand-ups, and like, and I feel like. Yeah, like you said, I think obviously it has changed, and I don't think it's like, and it's funny because there's some people, even young people, that actually do get this. There's a guy that he helped me with my videos in the beginning because so I did a college a while back, and he opened for me, and then he always kept in touch, and then when he moved to LA, and then he's like, hey, I want to help you with your videos and all this stuff, and I was like, okay. He helped me get a lot of followers on social media. But his thing was like, look, I know how to do the influence stuff. I could do it, but I want to actually get better at stand-up first.
Right.
So that was he in his mind is like, I want to do what you did, which is like go through the open mics and get better and do all this stuff. So there's people out there that if you have that mentality, great. And I think that eventually in the long run, that's gonna get you much better.
Yeah, well,
it's
it's an old saying that the cream will rise to the crop. The ones that put the work into it are going to eventually, like right now, there's a lot of flash in the pants.
Yes.
1-hit wonders, one video.
Yeah,
hey, the guy with
yeah.
the cocaine video. But eventually the guys that work at it are going to be the ones that are working in the long run. And I hope that keeps going. You know what I mean? I hope guys keep doing that. Less guys pay attention to the live form because they think they can make money, or they are making money.
Of course, and they are making money, which and also to me it's also then it's fine. It's like, but then also then do that. Don't try to do something else if that's not what you want. Like if you're just doing it for the money, then maybe not. If you do want to become a stand-up, then do it the right way.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if not, then it's fine. Just keep doing your videos and keep being whatever, and then make money doing that, and that's fine. Then if you want to do a show, then be like, hey, come like a Q&A or like a one-man person show or like whatever. Like don't. But then it's when you call it a stand-up, and then people go see it, and then it's not stand-up. Then that's a different thing. I mean, and actors have done it too. You see actors that go like, hey, I haven't, I'm not making, I haven't get booked, so let me go.
Thing. Remember years ago, early on when I started out, a lot of the guys from soap operas, the younger guys.
Oh, that's right.
Did
Yes.
a tour. Walt Willey was one, but he was a real comic. He was the only real comic that was on a soap opera. These other guys had an idea, and they would just do the three hottest guys would go out and do 10 minutes of stand up. Maybe the place was packed with moms.
Yeah, of course.
And then there was just a Q&A for 30 minutes.
Okay,
they took pictures. It sold out.
Yeah, and look, hey, if you want to do that, fine, but call it what it is.
You call it what it
you know
is,
what I mean? Then like the thing is is when you're like just because I play tennis and I taught tennis, but I'm not gonna call myself a professional tennis player. Like, there's no way. You know what I mean? And that's the thing of what we were talking about before. I think the art form of stand-ups is it's the hardest one, but it's the one that gets the least respect.
It gets no respect
because it's because there's no barrier. There's no end. Anybody can just start doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Social media's made that really
and
annoying.
that has made it even easier now that people can just do it. And
It's really annoying because to me it's frustrating. I'll see a clip of someone that they'll a 2-minute clip, they'll be hilarious, and I'll go, that guy doesn't have 12 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's
But-
when you see it in the front and like on live, you go like, you could tell when it's like,
Yeah.
it's like a boxer. Like it's like after the first
Yeah.
round, you're like, oh man, he doesn't have. You got 12 more rounds, man.
Yeah,
And
man.
like, you're like,
It's kind of painful to sit back and watch that struggle where you're like,
Yeah.
"Ugh." I know there's a couple of guys, one guy on a ship, he's a really good kid out of New York. His name was Dominic. His first name was Dominic. But he got booked basically he had a whole lot of followers, right? And but you didn't need a lot of material for a ship. You need to have at
because
least
you got
an hour and a half.
different shows.
Yeah, and you
different-
need at least, you should have at least an hour clean.
yeah.
45 clean the least.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? Princess makes you have 2 45s clean, and it's just a different. But you got to have the material.
Yeah.
He didn't have enough material, but his stuff was good, and his jokes were really well written.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And every day he would come up with a new joke. So he knew. He was like, I got to get more material.
Okay.
So he was working.
So that
on
was
it.
good, yeah.
And everything he did was brilliant. I go, dude. I go, you're a great joke writer. I go, dude,
Nice.
just keep it up.
Yeah.
Just keep writing.
So now he has the skill
Eventually-
and he understands the skill.
Yeah,
like-
and now at least he's got a way to go up every night and do it. And he was working on it
Exactly.
all day. He really worked his ass off.
and he didn't get frustrated. Like I was like, oh, well, they don't like me because I got followed.
No, he was mad at
understood.
himself. He was like, I need more material.
That's
I know. And that was his focus was
Nice.
this is the way it should be.
That's how it should be.
You're
That's
right.
why you could tell that guy is gonna be successful because he's not putting the blame in the world or whatever. It's like no, he's going like, no, I need to write more.
I need more
because
jokes.
I'm still young. I need to write more material. Whatever.
And all his written stuff, like I said, was really brilliant.
Yeah.
I go, those are really good jokes.
Nice.
I go, so
nice.
just keep writing. You'll be
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. So I
You
think
know?
there's always gonna be people like that, and I feel like, and I think that's what it is. I think at the end of the day, it's like you gotta, with this, I've been starting reading this, and I'm gonna say because of Seinfeld, because it's Marcus Aurelius,
Okay.
because he has the philosophy of Stoics.
No, what is it?
This is basically the whole philosophy of Marcus Aurelius was like, Stoics. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. It's Stoic. But that's like the philosophy. But it's basically that you should not always worry. Don't worry about everything else. Just worry about you becoming better of
Right.
what you can do.
Yeah.
And I feel like now with so much shit out in the world, like that's what you gotta do. Like the example of that guy is like, nah, I gotta write more. I gotta get better writing more. And like I think, like you said, that will also keep you leveled like you say, that
Right.
it will climb because you're getting better at what you do.
Well, then
know?
those individuals, it does two things about that. One, we kind of talked yesterday about being present in the power now.
Yeah.
All of that therapy kind of comes back to the same thing. It also comes down to another rule I follow: only worry about things you can control.
I 100% follow that too,
And
all the
that's
time.
otherwise, and there's a little bits of us that something happens, somebody gets apart, and the little party goes, fuck, I wish I would, why him or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just natural because
Of
what our job
course.
is. But then if you just turn it around and go, well, here's what I need to do to fix that.
Exactly.
And you focus on yourself more than anything.
And also, it doesn't make you go nuts too, because it's like, I think if you realize it, like, if life is simple, if we really only work on the stuff or focus on the stuff that we can control.
You're right, yeah.
Because what is it? It's like, it's literally like working out, eating, sleeping, only literally stuff, writing,
Yeah.
whatever, and that's it. Anything else,
Yeah.
it's out of your control. Like nothing, like whatever. You could be walking on the street, something happens, or like we do a show and something in the crowd, whatever, it has nothing to do, so it's like
Yeah.
all those things are not. So if you, the more you can like just work on those things and forget those things and don't take it personal either,
Right, right.
that's, I feel like, and I've done that more and more, and it has helped me because, especially when I started in the business, I had, I grew up very people pleaser. Like I always like to make people happy and that's how. And in this industry, you can't do that. It's like the worst. It's like actually worse if you do that. It's better if you just be. So I realized when I started going to auditions, I was like, you're trying to be all this stuff, and it's kind of like it just doesn't. It's like I started booking when I really didn't care about their approval.
Yeah.
When I was just focusing on what I wanted to do, and that's it. And that's the more you can do that.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
more
Well,
you
you
can
focus on one of the philosophies I followed as an actor. Bryan Cranston, when he won his first Emmy, there's a great YouTube clip you can see of him explaining when his career changed and it shifted. And ironically, I just saw Michael Keaton give the same speech to an acting class, and it comes down simply to this. And it's as simple as, again, being present and only what you can control. You can control the audition. That's your job. Your job is to go and do the audition.
Exactly.
Your job isn't to book the gig. Once you stop thinking, I need to book this gig. I went through a big wave during my divorce where I was in a rough place. I had a nervous a panic attack in the middle of an audition.
Wow.
I freaked, and I literally, it was a callback. It was a big NBC was there and everything. I can't do this.
Wow.
And I just walked out. I mean, I really freaked, and it was around that time that I was in therapy and I was reading this book, and I saw that clip, and that was one of the things that changed acting for me. It was like, oh shit, it's not about. For a while, because I got to book this gig to pay the lawyer to do this stuff.
Exactly.
But if you don't get away from that and focus on your job is to walk in and go, here's what I have to present the character.
Exactly.
What else do you want me to do? Let's work together for 4 minutes.
Exactly.
This is what it
yeah,
would
like
be.
when you helped me with that thing, like, and it was actually was watching it back. I was like, man, like you helped me so much because I was like, I could tell in my eyes that I was like present watching you. Doing the thing and it was it was like what 5 seconds, whatever, 3 seconds.
The littlest look,
but it was
video.
But just even you like, and that was literally what it is. I was like, I just want to do a good job here in this present situation. That's it. You throw it out there in the universe, and then who cares? But but that's also, and if you think about it, it is a human nature thing that we do. Humans, we are more attracted to people or to things that are who they are. You know what I mean? Like people that are like if you're if you're a person that's just like, oh man, that guy's cool because he doesn't care about what people think of him, or like even girls are attracted to guys when they're not like, hey, how are you? It's always like the cool James Dean is like, hey, I don't care,
very sullen.
What's my life? I don't care, because and that is true. Like you go to audition, that's how they book you get, because if you feel that. I need to book it.
Excited. Hi, I'm Lenny Schmidt. I'm reading for the role of Trevor. You're all fired. How are you? Nice shirt. This place is awesome.
I know. You're like,
you're like, shut up.
And it's also true for like, and you have to, and it has to be real too, because you can't fake that either. If you go like, I don't give a shit, then people go like, well, then why the fuck are you here?
Well, these people's jobs is to critique and judge people and cast.
Exactly.
So they've seen every type of person walk in. They can tell if you're acting.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
So they know if it's natural.
If it's natural or bullshit.
Yeah, they know for sure.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with stand-up too. As soon as you get up on the first stage, people read that. Like they go like, oh, this guy is bullshitting, or he's fake, or he's like it's an act, or he's not being, But if you're genuine, whatever it is that you do, people connect with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you own it though. You own whatever your character is on stage.
Exactly.
Like even the guys that did some kind of look, everything Andy Kaufman ever did. Even Dice when he was playing his character on stage, it was a version of who they were. Exactly. I knew there's a guy out of Seattle, Elliot Max was his name. And he went by another name, I can't remember. But he won the Seattle comedy competition twice as 2 different characters.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty impressive.
That's pretty cool.
He was like he's a legend in Seattle. This is way back. It was Elliot Max, and I can't remember his other name was something else.
Wow.
But yeah, that was really impressive. I'm like, man, that's fucking cool.
Yeah. No. And I think that's, it is one of the things that for me, it took a while. And it's one, and also I learned too, is like sometimes is the way that you grew up, you have it naturally, or you don't, and you have to work at it, or you have to remind yourself about it too. Like for me, I'm always have to remind myself, like, hey, because I don't have that. I didn't grow up with. I'm like, I'm cool, confident right away. Like I had to like kind of work at it and like believe in myself. You know what I mean? And So but I think it's all comes down to like being aware, like we're talking about, of who you are, and how you grew up, and why do you do this? Like, when I want people pleasing, or why do I do this, is because when I was growing up, my parents did this to me, and just little things that you start connecting them, they start going like, oh, so that, for example, in my case, like I remember growing up, like, I wasn't like, because the way that my parents grew up, they were like always pointing at the flaws instead of like the positive stuff. Okay. So I grew up with like always like, well, I'm not good at this, or I'm not good at that, or I'm not good at this.
Right.
But once I started doing stand-up, I read this book, which is really great, that kind of like basically connects these dots. And then I started going like, oh, no, the way I think that I'm not good because that's how I grew up, but that doesn't mean I'm not.
Right.
And then I started going like, no, I am funny. I can do this and all this stuff. So it's like, then you start this, like kind of disconnecting that stuff. It's like, oh, yeah, like my parents did this because that's the way that they grew up, or they never meant to do any harm or anything like that or whatever. But doesn't mean that I'm that person.
Right,
you know?
right.
And then you start going like, oh, I'm not that person. And then you kind of freeze yourself to being like, no, I am good at this. You know, realistically.
Well, the seasoning of you on stage, I think, does so much for you as a person as a whole too. Like I changed a lot throughout my career with doing stand up. When I was a kid in high school, I was nervous. I was screwing up in front of people. In fact, I played football, and I was so nervous once. So I screwed a play up, and I was in a huddle. And I got lost. I mean, I was scared on the field. I was scared of what people are going to think of me.
Yeah.
And this is a big group of people.
Yeah.
So but as I did stand up, when you start doing stand up, if you keep doing it and you get better, you begin to understand yourself better and why you're on there better, and it kind of changes your outlook on everything.
Exactly.
Because it would stand up, even though we need to get. Our job is based on getting some sort of reaction every 15 to 30 seconds or whatever your time frame is.
Yeah.
But it's like that nonstop. It's like that all the time on stage. There's no break for it.
Yeah.
So, but I think after years of doing that, you learn that the only way to make that work is to not want that response, not to care. You can't go, I need a response every 15 to 30 seconds. You just know yourself well enough. You do it. If it works, you go, oh, good, it worked. And if it didn't work, you go, fuck, I got to change that.
Exactly.
You
got to go back.
You're not crushed anymore. You're not like, oh, no.
Because you already know that, like, hey, I am good at this. You know, I just don't.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's like being an athlete. Same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, just like, hey, you had a bad game. You know what I mean? But doesn't mean that you're a bad basketball player or football player, whatever. You just had a bad game that day, and then you go like, well, I had a bad game because why? I did this or they did that to me, so I got to kind of figure it out. I got to start this way. Yeah. You start like, that's the way to kind of like, you know, and like you were saying too, I feel like the more you do it too, you said that you change, and to me that's the key word. You have to change, especially like in life, but in stand-up too, because I just... You know, like they were like here this week, you know, like the people who work at the club, they're going like, oh man, I like you have all this new material. And I was like, yeah, I mean, like I came here last year. Yeah. Like I should have new material.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
God. If you don't have guys coming to a new material.
Dude, I'm like, but to me, because two things, it's like, for me, that's our job is to keep always writing more.
Yeah.
But also, like you were saying, is like, you have to also write. It's because you're changing throughout your life. So it's like you have to talk about this. To me, the stuff that's happening currently in your life.
Well, shit, dude, you're doing the marriage stuff.
The marriage stuff because it just happened.
And I do all this kid stuff.
And you're doing
my 20-year-old daughter.
Exactly, you know what I mean? But you're not talking about like stuff that happened to you when you started. You know, because if it doesn't. It's also it's not genuine to. You know what I mean? People don't believe it. You know, be like, no, I see. Like, or I could not even like make up shit. I'm like, so I have a kid. I'm like, if I don't have a kid, you know what I mean? It's like that's bullshit too. So it's like. So I feel like that, to me, that's the job, too, is to always keep, you know, working on the stuff that's in your life, you know, and making it current, what's happening in the world.
Current's a key, too. It's not just about stuff that's in your life. It's also about being relevant.
Exactly.
Like my daughters, I gotta be honest with you, they save my ass because I run a lot of shit by them.
Nice.
And they're real. I used to teach them. I used to teach comedy to kids.
Yeah.
They've got a real good ear for comedy.
Nice.
So they can actually go, no, Dad, you should do.
Or use this word, or nobody uses this app anymore.
Yeah,
whatever
there's a joke I do that I don't know if I did it the other day, but I used to use Burger King as the reference. And my daughter goes, no one goes to Burger King, Dad. She goes, you change it to Chipotle. I'm like, all right. So
that's a great, and it's so funny how that can make
one word something to laugh. First of all, it's got a little bit of the hard cake, you know, a little bit of it. But and everybody goes to Chipotle now.
Yeah,
she's right.
And you get it right away, and that is true. That's actually such a great, because if I hear Burger King, I'm being like, what? Like it like
I know.
Like it does. You do it, but it's like you said, nobody. It's like a thing that you don't. Usually don't go. Like Burger King is one of the things, like the last thing.
I love Burger King. That's the problem. So I got to remember, no, use something. Maybe Panera Bread now. There's another joke, because I used Burger King last night, a different joke. But I got to switch it to something else.
Yeah.
But staying relevant is like, because I did a show maybe a couple years ago for, my cousin was there, and there were a lot, it was Chicago, Zanies. And everybody's under 40. It was a young crowd, real young. But man, it was a great show.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and it's like, if you can't stay relevant with a younger crowd, you're gonna in trouble.
You're gonna that, yeah. Like, and I think, and that's a key too. It's also like being relevant with the crowd, with what's happening in times, but also still being yourself. Because I see it sometimes. I used to do a lot of colleges before, and like people would ask me like, "How'd you do it?" Because you're, and I was like, "How do you connect with them?" I was like, "Well, I do this. I was doing the same bits that I was doing at the clubs. The only thing is like my approach." That my delivery was a little different in terms of like, to them, but I wasn't being like, hey, like I wasn't trying to be like them.
Yeah.
I was being like the cool older, like the cool older brother or the cool,
Oh, that's cool.
that's
cool.
like the way to be like,
That's smart.
That's how you gotta like approach it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or if you're doing it in front of an older people, you want to be like, oh, that's my cool nephew or my cool brother,
Right.
son-in-law kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Like that's, so you're still being yourself, but you're still kind of like in a cool way, but it's not where you're trying to be young,
No, you
like, hey,
can't
what's up,
fake,
kids?
What's up, guys?
Yeah, like,
hey,
what's up?
LLOVVV. You're like, what the fuck?
You're like that meme from like what's his
like
name?
a boomer meme that you see everywhere.
What's the one from the guy from The Sopranos, actually, Anthony Blundetto. Now I'm like
Gandolfini, the lead?
no, his cousin that comes out of jail. He's been in Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, it's Buscemi, who just
Buscemi.
got jumped last week.
Yes, he got. That's
Yeah.
crazy. But
Yeah.
but yeah, there's like the meme of him going like,
Yeah.
or there's like a show that he's like with a skateboard. He's like, "What's up, dudes?"
Yeah.
And it's like that's literally the
That's
example.
That's the Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah,
It does a
exactly.
bunch of that stuff. in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, that's because I always try. That's funny you say that because I always go. My character on stage, I try to go. Like I don't think talking down to them works. Like
No.
you kids today. Like I know guys that do it well. Like Brad Upton's really good at that. Brad does, but if you're going to do that, you're going to be great at it.
Yeah.
But I never wanted to go with it. So my angle is always, it's not that I'm a cool buddy or whatever, but I'm the guy who's trying to figure it out and I make the mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the girls, it's almost like a Disney approach where the kids know more than me.
Got
You know what I
it.
mean? And
That's smart too.
And
yeah.
that connects with the kids in the crowd because they get it.
Yeah.
And the adults in the crowd get it because they don't understand
went
some
through-
of the
yeah,
stuff. Like, oh, I
exactly.
get. He's the thing with the phone.
Or they make the same mistakes too.
Sure,
so they
no,
get it. Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
the connection. I don't want
Yeah.
it to be. I've always tried to not divide the room on some way.
Oh no, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even like I stay away from politics, and every once in a while I'll say something about one or the other. I hate the whole system of politics.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I'll make fun of that, but I don't like to divide. So like a younger crowd, older crowd, I want to somehow bring them together.
Exactly. I feel that's my approach too. Has always been. I mean, that's when one of my favorite shows, and ever since it's always been Seinfeld, and it's because I like the universal comedy of it, where anybody can. I remember watching Seinfeld with my parents. I was like, we were all laughing. Like my sister, me, my parent, and like, I remember thinking that I'm like, okay, that's what I want to do, where
I want everybody
everybody
to laugh.
that gets it. And even yesterday, like we had this show yesterday, and this guy from Australia who was in the front, he came up to me at the end, towards the end. He was like,
Jake, I talked to him afterwards.
Yeah. So he's
Done
like, that
our
was such
honeymoon.
a great, he was,
Yeah.
but he loved the show. He's like, that was so great. I love how and then what he was saying is like, I love, like he told me, I love what you were like I could understand everything that you were saying. He wasn't, because he was saying like in Australia they all talk about being Australian and stuff that's very local,
Right.
and like you were talking about stuff that like anybody can relate.
Yeah, that's what
and,
he said.
And when he said that, I'm like, that's great because that's literally what I want to
Huge
do.
compliment. Yeah, no, because then it works for you. You got people from another. Yeah, the group I was talking to were from Glasgow.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
those 4 people were from fucking town from Glasgow.
Wow.
And they were like, you guys are great. You know,
Yeah.
it
So
was
that's
cool.
and that's going back to what we started in the beginning. That shows that work how as comics how we
That's
are
really
good
important,
because
yeah.
it's like there's no way that if you haven't been seasoned, as you mentioned, like we don't know how to connect with those people or do
Right,
you
right.
know what I mean? And like that's the job. It's knowing like, okay, I'm gonna do this type of how am I gonna connect with these people that are from Australia or from Glasgow? Like I never
Right.
heard of me or they never but you don't talk about stuff that's so.
Well, we all have more
niche,
in
yeah.
common than we think we do.
Yeah.
We have more in common
Exactly.
than we don't.
Yeah, yeah.
And it seems now sometimes, especially comics and comedy, they really go for a niche.
niche.
And really divide and push. Or
Yeah.
it's so heavily politically charged. There were times when
Exactly.
I've sat at the Comedy Store, like 6 guys in a row, and I go, I can't watch any more Trump
I know,
materials. It's
I
killing
know,
me.
it's too much,
I go,
yeah.
I get it. He's
Yeah.
our president. You don't like him. There's other things going on
Exactly,
in the world. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah.
But everybody was just this hardcore
Yeah.
beating on it. And I'm not a Trump guy, but I mean, after a while,
but it gets annoying. Yeah, it's like it's the same thing as being like too dirty or like too like
too
it's like,
filthy, yeah.
All right, I get it. It's like okay, you said fuck.
Yeah, I get it, you have a big penis.
Yeah, exactly.
You're really good at it, good for you.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, next, and it's like
next.
Yeah, it's
You
like
got a joke about a blender or something? Just throw it
Exactly.
out there, man. Anything.
Exactly. Just some. Yeah, and that's always been my thing. I've always been never like. Again, I guess if compared to music, I like doing my style of pop music. You know what I mean? Where in terms of like, it's my style, is what I want to do, but also that hopefully everybody can relate to it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
And but I also understand too if like, hey, if you just want to be like a heavy metal kind of comic, that's fine. You know, that's your thing. You know, I think as long as you're doing something, to me, it's like as long as it comes from the original place. It like if my thing is to be like this guy, what's his name? I forget his name, but this guy he's from Canada, but like. He's like if you look at him, like he was really like in a heavy metal kind of band or something. And his stuff is like, like filthy, like edgy, crazy. And like, but that's his thing. He's always done that. That's how that's his style. And I watch it and I enjoy it because it's shit that I would never do. Like, it's just like crazy. But I'm like, and I respect that because that's who he is. That's what he likes to do. You know what I mean? I'm like, to me, it's when you start doing stuff just because to get famous or whatever. Like, oh, this is hot now, so I'm gonna do this.
Yeah,
or
I'm gonna try
to do this. It's like, nah, do what you wanna do, and then, oh, this is another I forgot to mention. I don't know if you ever read the book, the one that came out, The Art of Creativity, by Rick Rubin.
No.
You know Rick Rubin, the producer.
Yeah.
I remember I read it like I bought it. I read it like in 2 or 3 days because it's about being creative, how to be creative.
Really?
You know, and it's amazing. And one of the main things that, well, I mean, there's a lot of things, but one of the things that he says is like the audience comes last.
Okay.
When you're being creative, which means like anything that you're doing, stand up, writing, music, whatever, it's like you're doing it for you. You're not doing it for the audience.
Okay.
Once you're doing it for the audience, that's where it's not being genuine. The creation, you're not being creative for real.
Yeah.
And if you're doing
kind
it
of
for
being a whore, you know, you're just pleasing the masses, right?
Exactly. And like a whore, like there's no real connection there.
Right, there's not, right?
You know,
right.
And like a lady of the night, or what is it called now to say?
The what?
No, because now you get. I was gonna say like a sex worker.
Oh, it's a different word now. It's not hooker anymore. Okay.
Lady of the night.
Lady of the night. Just let me update my reference. Yeah.
No, but it is, and it is true. It's once you start, you know. But if you just do, he says, if you just do work on what you want to do, the audience will come because the audience will connect with that. Originality with that thing. They feel that, you know, this human thing that I'm like, this, you know, I could, and whatever it is, it could be a niche crowd or a huge crowd, but they will still connect and they'll find you.
Right.
So that's one of the things, and it has a bunch of other, you know, great things, but it's great. It's a great book about just being creative and how to.
The art of creativity?
The art of creativity. And it's how it's out there all the time. We all have to like, it's about also being present. Talks about being present because the more present you are, the more you can, like, these things that where the inspiration comes, you never know when it's gonna come, but you have to be open to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you're always thinking about what happened or what's gonna happen, then you're never present. So then that great idea might just fly you by.
Right.
Because you weren't present.
Yeah.
So
right. That's true. You missed it.
You missed that. Oh fuck! Like. This is my, you know, I'm like, I'm going to go into, you know, like, and it's great. It's a great book. I read it like in 3 days. It's amazing.
See, that's cool because it also translates to the live show. Because like you do something, you're good at it. You're really good at it. It's like I do something similar. Same thing. I'm always aware of what's going on in the room while I'm on stage.
Yes.
So that even though you're telling your joke, you can quickly go to. I like to have 2 or 3 people to go to and then bounce back and forth.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
just to be aware of like, and they know too, because then it kind of it's kind of like. It wakes them up a little bit. Like I always do it too when I'm like, they could be with me, but if I start feeling the whole like, I always call like the Snoopy thing when the teachers was talking like blah 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 blah. When I feel them going like they're just like, it's kind of like, hey, I kind of change it up so they can go like, oh, and then I could feel the connect. You know, and it's a spider sense feeling of like when they're really with you, and when they're just like,
yeah.
And it's like, and you. Again, it comes from doing it
you
so
can
much
just read
time.
It. No,
Put it, and that's where you gotta be like, slap, you know, be like, hey, wake up,
right?
You know, like you said, do something. What are you doing? Hey, okay, you guys okay? You guys listen to me? All right, cool. What is your name again? Just to get them back up,
right,
and then keep going again because
when it's also obvious when you're trying to force something onto a crowd. You know what I mean?
That's
why it's important to stay in the flow. I've always said this. I go, a live show is its own living, breathing thing.
It's like the wave that we're talking about, like
you're right.
surfing. Yeah,
That's exactly what it is. So, and sometimes it's hot. And the longer you do it, like not only that, like, like young kids will blame a crowd and say the crowd sucks. But every once in a while we get a bad crowd, or we know they're a bad crowd.
Exactly. We know that is a bad crowd.
And we go, okay, well, I'm going to have to do this, slow down, do this joke, whatever.
And this is what we call like, it was work.
That was when you work. Yeah, exactly.
That was
you
the
get
work.
upstairs, you go, that was a lot of work.
Yeah, when you're like,
sweating a little bit more, like, fuck, man.
But because we know how to do it to get the show, being a professional and be like, we still finished the show. And they still had show, but it wasn't, because it is true. Like, I feel like that's one thing also I learned by doing it more and more is like, I have an outline of what I want to do, but now I don't. It's literally an outline. I don't stick to it, because if you, like you're saying, you have to read the crowd, and I know, like you mentioned it. Sometimes when I have forced a thing or when I do it, it just doesn't come out. Like it just, you could feel like they're like, where did that come from? Because you try to force it, and it's like you always got to let it.
You got to change it. There's plenty of time. I make an outline too, and then sometimes I don't do any. Or if I'm headlining, I know how I'm going to open, and I know how I'm going to close. Okay, and then I'll just fill in the middle, whatever. With here, it's a little different because the time's shorter. Yeah. So I know how I'm going to open, and then when I get the light, I just use one of my closers.
And that's great.
I'll just do that.
Yeah.
So, but I like to normally, like, if I headline, to have a long 12-minute closure is kind of strong.
Yeah, of course.
Close with a big bam.
Yeah.
That's what I've always done. But I'll follow. That's what I'll do usually when I'm on stage. But everything in between, I'm in the moment. You know what I mean? And sometimes there was I think it was last night. The pilot guy was there.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I wasn't doing any of the pilot shit.
And then you went into
and
that
then I
thing.
go, well, I got to do this.
Of course,
now, right?
it just because it came out organically.
Yeah, and he was a trainer. And my joke was about the training.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah.
And then you look like a genius.
Exactly.
Like,
that's the magic trick of
wow,
it. Yeah.
You just thought of that?
Yeah. Yeah, and my also analogy too is like, I taught tennis. I'm a huge tennis fan, and like, to me, stand up is like tennis because like tennis is like you play. The audience is the opposite player, so every time you play, a new audience is a new game. So it's like you still have you have your shots that you have, which are your sets, your bits. But then you have to sometimes I have to play this crowd. I have to go in and volley this crowd. Or I have to come out. I have to go faster. I could go slower. It's an older player. So I'm just going to now like move them around instead of just.
Dude, that's really smart. I've never heard that before.
That's how and the same thing with tennis. Stand up is a thing that like you have to have a short memory. If you missed a shot or like the joke didn't land, you don't fucking like, you just go move on again. And you're like, all right, cool. Why? You go right away and start doing it because it's about winning the match. It's not.
Yeah, it's about the whole thing.
It's not just one play. So it's like, that's literally what it is. And it's like, so that's why it's always very like, that's why you need to be, you can't just go and just half-assed.
You gotta be flexible.
You gotta be flexible. You gotta be and be present and being, that's where the work comes, because if you have the more right material you have, it's like what happened to you. The more stuff that you can pull out of your back pocket that you were even expecting of doing
you're doing a whole different thing.
Because then it's like, and then you connect with people more because it's like, oh, I know something about pilots, or I know something about Australia, or I know something about and then boom, boom, boom. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Dude, this was good. Let's wrap this up. This went by fast.
Yeah,
it was really good. Yeah, it was great. Do me great into the camera. Just give me socials. Plug whatever you want to plug.
Hey, everybody. I'm Francisco Ramos. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at FRamosComedy. Also, my little specialito is coming out July 9th on YouTube. It was filmed at the Brad Garrett's Comedy Club. So, produced by Brad Garrett. It's going to be great. So check that out. And follow me on all the live shows that I'm going to be doing throughout the year. Bye.
Awesome. Dude, Francisco, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, man. That was so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Of course. You're still watching? That's amazing. Nobody does that. Nobody, but you did. That means you want more. Pick one of these clips. Go for it. I dare you. Hey, also, follow one of those social media thingies.